Okay, so this is your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about TFT and the auto chess genre in general. All of the tips that you learn here will be applicable in every single auto chess game, simply because it's going to be going over the fundamentals of the game mode itself, like how to play auto chess games, character selection, item selection, and economy management. And if you want more advanced guides, these will specifically be about TFT, full disclosure. It will be in the future later this week. So if you are a already intermediate player and you want to go for advanced, I would recommend waiting for those guides or going for someone else, because I do not want to waste your time. So if you want to stop watching now, feel free. That being said, though, if you have any advanced questions or intermediate questions, even or basic questions, feel free to ask them in the comments, even if you think that you're an advanced player. If you have any questions, I think they're really good questions. I will definitely include them in future videos for my advanced guides on specific aspects of the game. And the best part about being a small YouTuber is I can actually answer all of your questions individually too. So I think that even if you are an advanced player and you do want to keep watching this, there will be some benefit, and you can just still ask me questions if you want. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump right into it. Okay, so this part of the guide I would recommend skipping if you're an intermediate player or better. This is just going to be the bare fundamentals of the game mode as a whole, so I'll put the link in the description for skipping to that. But anyway, what is an auto chess? An auto chess is, in my opinion, or my most general terms, a turn-based strategy game that incorporates card game mechanics of building a deck and board game mechanics of strategically placing pieces in order to best an opponent. And the goal of the game is to not have your life points get reduced to 0, and you lose life points based on how many pieces your opponent has left if they beat you. So if your opponent has 2 pieces left, depending on the level of the piece, you could take 1, 2, 3 damage each, and the goal is, or more, and the goal is to not have your life get reduced to 0 and be the last person standing. So basically, how the game works is every turn, there will be a draft phase at the beginning where you can buy units that you want or need to help your composition. You will then buy those pieces, and as the game goes on, you'll slowly be allowed to put more and more pieces on the board to develop a better team composition. But you will buy pieces based on what you want or what you think the strongest thing on the board is, and you will try to build a team, whether it be based on synergies of units, whether it be Yordles, for example, in TFT, where 3 Yordles gives you dodge chance, or it's just you need tanks, so you pick somebody who's like a knight to be tanky, or a brawler or something to be tanky, or if you need damage, so you pick something like a ranged or mage character in order to do some damage. I'll get into this in the more intricate stuff a little bit later. Not the most, it's not advanced by any means, but it's intermediate. But basically, that is the goal. Then what you want to do is you want to place the pieces in a way that you would that would beat an opponent. So like tanks in front, mages and utility in the middle, and then ranged carries in the back, or something along those lines. Basically, you want to select as many pieces as you can, combine them to make them stronger, equip them with items, and position them in a way to beat other people and not let your life total go down to 0. It's pretty basic in the concept of the game, but I will get into more specifics about everything right now. It'll go in the order of character selection, item selection, and then economy management, which is very important. And in character selection, I'll also include positioning. But yeah, these are the basics of how to play the game, and I'm going to get into more intermediate stuff right now. So character selection and positioning can be broken up into 4 basic parts, being synergies, leveling up and rarity, positioning, and team composition, which is kind of a combination of the other 3 all wrapped into one thing. So without further ado, I'm jumping right into it. Synergies is what you're going to base your teams around, generally. Yeah, you can have a ragtag group of heroes and have them all be fairly high rarity or high level because you got lucky with some certain picks, and that can work, I guess, but generally speaking, you want to go for synergies. And synergies basically mean that the game will give you a set of requirements. Let's say either racial or class requirements. So let's go with the racial one, Yordles. You need 3 to 6 Yordles to actually get the bonus, and it'll tell you what the bonus is. So for Yordles, it's dodge chance for all Yordles. So if you have 2 Yordles and you need 3, you get no bonus. If you have 3, you get the bonus. If you get 4, you only get the 3 Yordle bonus. You don't get anything extra for having that 4th. It's not like each one from 3 to 6 gives you something. It's just 3 and 6 gives you a bonus. So if you have 5 Yordles and you can't get that last one, maybe consider switching. I don't know. That's up to your own interpretation, or really commit to getting that last one. But anyway, that's basically how synergies work. And the same goes for classes. Knights, you'd need like 2 of, and if you have 1, you get nothing. If you have 3, it's not like you get anything extra for having a third one. It just gives you the 2 knight bonus. And there can be any number of class that you need. Some have 1, some have 2, and some have 3. And actually, there's 1 or 2 with 4 as its requirement. Pirates and ninjas. So basically, you need to have the set number that they give you in order to get the bonus. And once you have that, you get a bonus. And sometimes it's an entire like team buff, and sometimes it's just a buff to the people in that race or class. And that's basically what you want to build your entire team around. Some like damage things like mages allow you to have extra bonus magic damage or magic penetration, which is huge. And having knights gives you a tankier frontline because it boosts their damage reduction. And it again, it's what you want to build your team around generally, because it makes an already like decent group of people stronger because it gives them bonuses. Next is leveling up and rarity. And leveling up, I mean not only yourself, which will go into the economy portion, but the like leveling up a unit from 1 star to 2 stars and 2 stars to 3 stars. So I'm going to go into this real quick. Basically, to get a 2 star, you need 3 of the same unit, 3 of the same 1 star unit, and I'll just use Garen as an example. So Garen, you want 1 unit for level 1, or a 1 star. You need 3 for level 2, 3 1 stars, 3 of the lower level. To get a 3 star, you need 3 2 stars, which means you need in total 9 total Garens, which is a lot. Okay, let me tell you, that's a lot of Garens. Okay, and it is easier to get 3 stars in TFT than Dota, Underlords, or Auto Chess, in my opinion, but it's still very difficult. And there are a couple of reasons why. One, as you go up through the levels, in terms of your like chess player level, your odds of getting lower rarity things goes down, right? And the chance of you getting higher level things goes up. And not only that, but as you go up higher levels and it unlocks more rarity, higher rarity units, that means that there are more people in the total pool of things that you could get offered. And if the total pool of things that you get offered goes up, the chance of you drawing a lower level thing goes down, and the fact that Garens are being taken out of the pool. Because basically how it works is there are 30 units, maybe, I don't actually know a specific number, but like let's just use 30 as an example. 30 units in a pool. So let's say 10 Garens are taken out. Let's say 2 people get 3 star Garens or 2 star Garens, and then you're trying to go for some, so you get an extra 1. That's 10 taken out. That's only 20 Garens left in the pool. So as you level up and go throughout the game, it's less and less likely that you get the things that you're searching for, because more total units are in the pool. Because like, okay, you unlocked uncommon and you unlocked rare, which means that there are, instead of having like 150 total pieces in the pool, it just went up to like 250 and then 350. And sure, things are slowly being taken out, but the total number of cards being put in is still increasing, and the total number of the thing you want is going down, and the odds of you getting that thing is going down because you're leveling up. So basically, the giant story of all of this is that as you go up levels, the odds of you getting lower cost or lower rarity minions goes down, to the point where if you don't get a 3 star after a certain point, it becomes much, much harder to get it as you go on. Which brings me to a rookie mistake that I think a lot of people make, and they prioritize that 3 star over a 2 star of like a rare or epic unit. Because I would much rather take a level 2 like Brand, which is an epic unit, over a level 3 like Vayne or something, which is a fairly high priority early 3 star goal. I would much rather have a Brand with a decent item than like a 3 star or a 2 star Brand than a 3 star Vayne with like 2 decent items, you know? Because the ult is just more impactful. And as you go up in rarity, the ults become more and more impactful, which is probably the stats. But that's probably the reason why I think a 2 star like higher rarity unit is better than a 3 star lower rarity unit. That's basically my thought process on all of this. You can go for 3 stars if you want, but I don't think you should prioritize it as much as a lot of people that I've seen play the game prioritize it. Like, I play with friends sometimes, and they're like committing everything to getting that 3 star Vayne and re-rolling and and like refusing to level up to try to get that thing, and it just becomes much higher. Like the likelihood of doing it is so low, and then eventually they just get outpaced because by the time they get it, unless they somehow get lucky and get it early, they just end up losing the game because they have nothing really else on their board. Okay, so moving on to positioning. Basically, in my opinion, positioning is broken up like any game should be. You have tanks in the front, you have utility and mages in the middle, and AD carries in the back. Generally speaking, this is how it should work. However, that's like an ideal cookie cutter team. It's going to be different. And because of the fact that mana is based on how much you get, or how much mana, how much damage you take, and how much damage you deal, sometimes you're going to want people with impactful ults in the front. For example, Morgana and Kennen are two examples of people that are squishies that I would have in the front in order for their ult to trigger soon. Okay? So like I would have a tank and a tank on either side, and then like Kennen or Morgana in the middle. Like a 3-person front line. So that way the Kennen or Morgana would take damage in the front line, so their ult would activate sooner. They'd be in the front line, so they'd have a wider area of effect to do damage to more opponents. And same goes with Morgana. However, there are some units where the ult isn't really a factor, and those you definitely want to keep in the back line. For example, Vayne. Vayne doesn't really have an ult, but a lot of damage, and it's range. So what you want to do is you want to keep her in the back because you don't want her to die, you know? Then you have people, and also like Tristana and whatnot. But then you also have people like Brand, who has a really good ult, and you might want to take some damage, like AoE, so you put him in the middle. He's not really utility. He's actually one of your damage dealers, right? So you might want him in the back. But putting him in the middle, if you have a 3-row lineup, is not that bad either, because the tanks will take most of the damage. Brand will take some AoE damage, which will mean he gets his ult off sooner, and he can hopefully burst some people down. Or Irelian Soul or something, or people with utility in order to get, as I said, utility and like mages stuff in the middle so they can get off a good ult or a stun or something. And that's just the general gist. There are some things that you want to do in order to counter other people, however. Like, I'm just going to go into this real briefly because I'll talk about this more in like a more advanced guide a little bit later. But let's say you're playing against assassins. Assassins have the ability to jump into the backline and kill your backline. Instead of having your people in the very middle of the board, as some people generally do, put them in either the back right or back left corner, because that means the assassins literally can't jump behind your tanks to get to your damage dealers. Your damage dealers are kept safe, and that means, well, you'll end up doing more damage. If you're playing against a guy with a lot of AoE, let's say you're later on in the game and a lot of people seem to have mages or AoE, split up your guys a little bit. Don't cram them all in the corner. Don't have them all in the middle. Have a little bit of space in between each guy, so not everybody's hit with like an AoE effect. If you're playing against somebody who has a Blitzcrank, put like a useless kind of utility person you're okay giving up in the very back corner, so it'll get pulled, and leave your like damage dealing Vayne or Draven or Tristana like one space diagonally above, below, or like to the side or something, so that way it will survive and not get pulled in and immediately get killed. And there are more things to it, obviously, but those are just the general rules of thumb, in my opinion. And the last thing is just general team comp. You want to have some tanky frontliners, you want to have some utility and mages, and you want to have some AD carries, in my opinion. However, that being said, if you can develop a good team comp that only has tanks or only has damage dealers because you have good synergies and you have good level ups and your guys are higher rarity and you're just doing well and you have a good class synergy that like is able to capitalize on it, like in my opinion, it's my opinion, glacials don't have a ton of damage. They have Ash, but they have a lot of utility. So if you have like only one damage dealer, but like 2 frontliners and a utility and a damage dealer is like your basic foundation, and then you have a couple more like a brawler and a knight on either side, because this goes in a little bit too specific, but you'd have 1 brawler glacial, 1 knight glacial. So let's say you go for an extra brawler and an extra knight for a little bit of that synergy. So you have a 4-person front line. You get 2 more elementalists, which are more utility, and you end up with like limited damage in the back. That's fine because of the fact that you built a good team comp with good synergies and positioning. So it doesn't all need to be cookie cutter. The point is you need to have a team comp where at least you have something in the front line. Okay, You need to have some sort of front line so you don't get blown out. Some sort of damage because you don't want to just not be able to kill the other person. And then the rest is up to you. As long as you have like 2 damage dealers or something, and 2 tanks, the rest is really up to you, in my opinion. Items. Okay, so items, let's talk about this real quick. Items, especially in TFT, are very important. First off, every item in TFT can combine with any other item in the game, at least at a basic level, and in Dota Auto Chess it's a little more complicated, and I'll put a cheat sheet for both games in the description as just like, a picture so you know what combines into what and what each upgrade does. And this one really just comes down to understanding what each item does and what they do well with, whether it be like a weird synergy or common sense. Like, it's common sense that defensive stats like health and armor will go well on a tank. Spell damage will go well on a mage. Attack speed and attack damage will go well on a more auto attack based AD carry kind of thing. And there's some niche things for people that attack a lot, something like Lucian or Vayne or Tristana, where lifesteal is actually extra good, whereas lifesteal on something else wouldn't be good. So there are some other niche picks, and there are some weird ones too, like spell damage doing well on the tank Garen because his spin does spell damage, and his spin does continuous damage and does damage in a wide area. So surprisingly enough, because he's already kind of tanky, giving a spell damage actually makes him a lot more powerful. So really, items come down to figuring out what's good on who just by trial and error or looking up a tier list and looking up what's good on who. And I'm sorry that this part of the guide is not super in depth, but really all I can give you is a cheat sheet on what items build into what and reading their abilities, using that to determine who it goes well on. I will say though that to combine items, it has to be on a character, and once you combine them, at least in TFT, you cannot break them apart. In Dota Auto Chess, I think that they created a feature where you could, but in TFT, you have to keep that item. Okay, so make sure you do something that works well, and you're like, oh, this item could go well on this one guy, but I might sell this guy later on, so I'm gonna end up getting rid of the or the item's not gonna be nearly as good on anyone else. Just don't craft that item. Just wait until you get a more permanent asset and put it into your team. So that's basically all I have to say about items. If you have any more specific questions and what you think or what I think is good and stuff like that, I would be more than happy to answer that. But in terms of items, it's really just a cheat sheet and cookie cutter strategies of what items are good, and if you get lucky enough to get them. In TFT, there's a little more skill because you can specifically choose some items in the carousel, like character selection and item selection stage every 6-ish rounds, which is helpful and makes it a little more skill based in terms of what item you specifically want. So it's better to memorize these. But for the most part, items are pretty basic, and I might not even come out with a more advanced guide on it. It'll just be a tier list if I do. Or it's something that you really need to top off your build with. If you're at 21 gold and you see a 3-star that you might want but you're not sure, don't buy it. Stay at that 20, because not only does that save you the 3 gold that you could potentially be wasting and you won't be able to buy something else with. Yes, you can sell it back, but at that time you don't have that 3 gold and you might not want to get rid of it. Not only do you save that 3, but you get +1 more in interest. And that may not seem like a lot, but if you make this same decision 3 or 4 different rounds, now you've increased your gold by 4. And that 4 gold could put you over the edge from 39 to 40 gold. And that little bit gives you 1 more gold. So now you've made 5 more gold than you would have because you made the decision to save and stay at that increment of 10 or like close to. Not only that, but that means you can now, let's say you're down to the end of the game and that extra gold ends up allowing you to buy that Yasuo or that Kale you really ended up needing because you had a little bit of extra gold in the bank because of it. Just saving up and not spending money because you can. Not only that, but just one last little tip. If you have something like 39, wait to buy something until after you've won or lost. Because if you won, you get that +1 gold before the round ends. So when the next round starts, it'll say you have 40. Which means that you'll get +4 in interest. So if you got 39, I like to save gold. That's just me. But if you have 38, there's no reason not to re-roll or level up down to 30. Because you're going to have to buy things at some point anyway, and you're not going to get the extra interest gold at the end of that round. So if you want, go down, or if you want to play a little bit riskier and you don't think you need the units at the time, you can save up and try to get to 50 as soon as possible, because 50 is the max amount of interest you can get, plus 5. In terms of selling, if you combine anything other than 1-stars, if you combine it and make a 2-star, that 2-star will sell for less than the 3 1-stars. So if you have 3 Lulus, that's a 2-cost minion. That is a total of a 6-cost investment. You'll sell for 4. The only thing that works where you sell the full thing is a 2-star $1 minion, which will get you $3 back. Okay, so economically, if you don't know if you want to keep something, but you're about to level it up to 2, make sure that you think you're going to use it, because if you don't, you've ended up just losing yourself some money. And trust me, it gets worse as you go up levels. Like if you combine 3 3s, you end up losing even more money, or 3 4s, or 3 5s, and you end up selling it, you end up losing even more money. So if you want to level up anything after level 2 or after $2, make sure it's something around a strategy that you could at least see yourself going in. Like, don't just say, oh, I'm going to level up this level to Rek'Sai because you know I can. Nope, you just lost yourself $2. So basically, try to manage the level of your guys, and if you see yourself going in a direction, sure, level them up, but if you don't and you need extra money at some point, definitely sell them. And you don't want to necessarily level him up, because that could actually end up losing you money, especially if you don't even end up using him. You just needlessly lost yourself minimum $2, if not more. Like, there's no reason to do that to yourself. So selling units in increments of 1-stars is just more cost efficient. So yeah, don't level them up unless you have to. So my throat is absolutely dying after all of this. I have talked a lot, and I've messed up a couple of times and had to do some retakes, and at some point I was just like, hey man, you know what? It doesn't need to be perfect. If people have questions or I forget to talk about something, they can ask me. If I flub up a word and somebody calls me out on it, you know what? That's comedy, so it doesn't really matter. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. If you want me to come out with more advanced guides, feel free to put in questions that I can put into those advanced guides, whether it be specifically based on character selection, an item tier list, specifically on the economy of the game, positioning of units, or just an overall more advanced guide. I'll be more than happy to do any of those. I just need your guys' ideas. No, that's not the right word. I need your guys' support and I guess ideas on what to talk about, because I don't know what you guys want me to talk about. And I could go over general ideas and go advanced. Like, I'm probably going to go over positioning, character selection, and the economics of stuff. But if you guys have specific questions, like, hey, here is a specific case where I have $38 and I've been offered this. Should I do it or should I not? And I might go over that specific example in a later video and tell you exactly what I would do and why, and tell you certain options. Because the best part about this game is nothing is objectively right or wrong, generally speaking. Some things could be wrong, like just picking random things, that's wrong. And staying super low on gold, that's wrong. But technically, if you have a strategy in mind, even if the strategy doesn't work out as well, that doesn't necessarily mean it was wrong. That just means it was some RNG-based thing or whatever. I mean, obviously, again, there are some wrong things, and I'll go over why some things are wrong, but I'll go over multiple different scenarios of why some positions or some choices in terms of character strategies or economy strategies could work or could not, and why they could work in certain situations. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Feel free to ask me any questions. I will try to respond to every single one of them. I will use these questions in future guides. I'm sorry this video ended up being 20 minutes long. I didn't expect it to be this long. Actually, it was 25. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. I actually really enjoyed making this, and this is probably my favorite game in a long time. So I'm going to be coming out with a lot more content on this. So hope you guys enjoyed. I've said that 3 times already, but I really mean it, and see ya.